Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Manifest Season 4, Episode 9. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. That opening was gut-wrenching. I legitimately started tearing up because it's like, yeah, they're at the end of the ropes. They were hoping that Cal's numbers would be going up, but even Samvi's treatment can't work. You know, it's like, I think the argument has always been, it would have always come down to this. It's just Cal's getting there a lot faster because he needs to get there faster for what's to come. He needed to be where he is in life to be here for everything to go down. That's why they had to kind of catch him up age-wise. But essentially, I mean, I'm sure like maybe there's like storytelling, other reasons why, maybe like because how do you hide that the actor who plays the younger version of Cal is going to get, maybe there's like other circumstances, but I think it's also like, right, he wouldn't be the age he is right now where he needs to be before the death date happens. So it is a situation of, yeah, this is sadly how it's meant to be. He was always going to probably end up back here in this amount of years later, but it's just happening faster now just because of that. And the sad thing is, I think Cal, and I guess arguably everyone was always on borrowed time, but Cal in particular. And obviously with everything going on, his dad's like, no. Ben's like, no, we'll find some other way. But all they can do is make because it's like, it's not even weeks. He may have days, like things are to that point because it's been a month of like treatments and stuff like that and nothing's working. It's past the point. And Cal doesn't want anyone else to know because it's like Zeke and Michaela's anniversary and he wants everyone to focus on the good times and stuff. And Ben's like, okay, but that doesn't mean we're giving up. We're not giving up at all. We're going to find some other way. We have to. So it is this beautiful celebration. The entire family's together. Even Jarrett's there because he came for advice, but they were like, no, man, stick it out. You're just as much a part of this. We've got plenty enough food. And I even love the cheers at the end where it's like, hey, he's like, I wasn't always rooting for these two. And it's like, oh, really? We had no idea. But he's like, yeah, but the best man and the best woman won and he's happy for them. So I thought it was good. Cause once again, I was going into this season like, no, I was like, please don't tell me we are doing the whole Michaela and Jarrett thing. But it's like, no, the early parts of the season made it seem like that's the case, but it's not going to be the case at all. Obviously the trailer's meant to mislead you in that regard, kind of make you feel like that might be the case. But it's just like, right, she'll always have a place in our heart for, Jarrett, so, but it's like, yeah, and Zeke's kind of come to terms with that, and it's just like, yeah, like he's an important part of your life, he's your friend, he's your partner, he's your ex and everything, but he's done so much to help everyone, and I even like that him and Zeke, like, kind of do the good cop, bad cop thing this episode, kind of seeing them kind of work together, and I think that's kind of a beautiful symbolism of it all, but ultimately, what kind of really sets everything in motion is that they all have callings, but the interesting thing is they see Olive, Zeke, and Jarrett there, and you're like, wait, what's going on? At first I was like, wait, like when you guys die, it's whatever this is coming, it's not just going to kill you, the death date isn't just for you guys, it's for the people you care about most. I thought, because when Samvi was there, because like, oh, we don't see Samvi, I was like, I thought Samvi was going to see Alex there, which, jumping ahead a little bit, well, not a lot. At the end, she sees Alex, but it's like, right, the people they care about. But I figured that's who she see, but she ended up seeing Thomas instead at the very back of the plane. So that ended up being interesting. So like, okay, obviously that ultimately ends up tying into this episode. So ultimately, they're trying to figure out, okay, so what does this all mean? Piecing it together. Obviously, TJ and Olive are continuing their search for the Omega Sapphire because Olive's read that this thing has so much power, it could grant miracles, and it's like, maybe, just maybe, if this thing is real, if we can find it, and if it's as powerful as people say it is, then maybe it could cure Cal. So all her hopes are on this, not only saving everyone, but in particular saving Cal, considering the condition he's in right now. So everyone goes their separate ways, because Cal needs to talk to Marco, because I forgot what exactly was the trigger for him to be like, it was, there was a particular overhead light was flickering, like a button had been pressed, and it was specifically Marco's seat. Which I think it's interesting because Ben's like, oh, why didn't I catch that? It's like Cal did. Because I mean, I think Cal in particular is always like, he's caught in a lot more of the details than probably most people have. So I think that's kind of like saying like, obviously like he's becoming more like Ben in that regard of like when it comes to the forefront of this whole calling situation and the passengers. But that's what makes him go like, okay, I need to see Marcos. So Zeke and Jarrett went to get him and brought him back. And being around Cal and the callings, he's been, because I think the whole thing is like they're supposed to all be perpetually in a state of calling because that's where the Major kind of left them. So he is drawing a calling and it ends up being the volcano. So I was like, okay, that's not good because we've been seeing this volcano for a while. I feel like maybe season 3 was the first time the volcano popped up. It's been like happening for a while because Cal's been seeing it, and obviously even in the globe, like it being represented there. And because they had to, like, it started at one point and then it seemed like they had diverted it, if I remember correctly, because it felt like the lava was pouring out. It was all the end of the world, but then all of a sudden it like kind of sucked back up and everything was okay. If I'm remembering correctly, do correct me in the comments down below if I'm completely off base there. But at the same time, while this is happening, apparently Egan's been working at that temple of the Omega Order the entire time. I was like, oh, which I'm like, okay, I know you're not doing it out of goodness of your heart. I'm like, I guess you just haven't had much luck finding the Omegas. Because I guess like little by little he's been searching the place because even he says like, yeah, the place is like a maze. And the moment they introduced the fact, it's like, oh, because they showed the whole, Thomas thing and about Leo and everything. And he was like, Kenroy. And he was making such a point about like, oh, you don't even hear your name like you only hear your name 8 out of 10 times. I'm like, yeah, like Kenroy isn't your name. I'm like, wait. Because at the beginning, the moment that came up, I was like, you're Leo. You have to be, because they made a point to show that in the recap. So I was like, you have to be Leo. And so he followed Egan down doing what he's doing. And interestingly enough, Sanvi and Michaela followed the compass to the boiler room when they were with Thomas, like back in season 1, I want to say that was. And because like Beverly hasn't heard from him in over a year. Not Beverly, Bethany. Bethany hasn't heard from him over a year, and he's kind of gone like off the grid. And so they thought maybe he came back here, but turns out they were there to meet with Leo and Egan, and it's like, whoa, callings have a funny way of uniting everyone because we're all on the same quest. Granted, Egan's in it for himself, but Leo finds the heart that was drawn for him, but Egan smashes it because he figures there's something behind it. Now, this is where Olive and TJ's previous work comes into place because Alzura's tarot deck comes into play, and I love it's like, oh, Roman's numbers don't go up to 0, doesn't have a 0 geniuses. Yeah, but Alzura tarot card does, and then like, oh look, it's the Fool, and Michaela's almost like, oh wow, how befitting. It's almost like it's talking about you. He's like, yada yada yada, and even later on, what was it? Sanvi ends up handing him the hangman. He's like, I think I feel like you're trying to say something with this. It's like, yeah, we don't like you, Egan. You're an asshole. I love it. Obviously they don't say that, but it's heavily implied. So they end up kind of piecing everything together. And then the final thing, and it kind of comes together with Marco's drawing, the final tarot card, the world, is represented by a volcano. There's a spot, they light it up like almost like a fireplace, and then all of a sudden, at first I was wondering like, oh, are only the passengers seeing this? But it's like, no, Leo's seeing it too, because it's a literal like I was like, that's some like Tomb Raider, Uncharted, even though I've never seen Indiana Jones. I've seen most of maybe the 4th one, which I know most people are like, really? The 4th one? I know, yada, yada, yada. It's one of those movie franchises I've just never, like, sat down and watched all those. Either way, it felt like just kind of that adventure, like, oh my god, you solved the riddle, and just, like, yeah, the bricks, like, everything melting and the bricks falling to reveal that, what's on the wall. And, oh, lo and behold, what's there? The crystal. And I was like, yeah, this feels like an Indiana Jones, or once again a Tomb Raiders, or a Uncharted thing of, you pull that out, there's going to be some booby traps activated, the place comes falling down. What does Egan do? He runs, because obviously it's self-preservation. I was like, you're not going to do what I think you're doing. Hey, grabs her to the door and he tries to close it. Michaela's opening it. I'm like, oh my god, Egan, you continue to be a garbage human being. I mean, dude, you could at least just get away. You don't have to actively leave them there to potentially die, but Michaela stayed behind because Leo needed help and they weren't going to leave him. So they were able to free his leg, but they were still trapped in there because Egan locked the door. The vent that they could go through is like bolted shut. So, but lo and behold, who shows up? Thomas, because he was drawn there. It's like, yeah, the callings have a funny way of this all working out. Because even Egan said, like, right, this was all connected to his first calling that he completely ignored. And now Michaela and Zombie are almost like, right, we were kind of pointed here at the beginning. We just didn't realize it. It's because if Egan had probably done his job properly and did his first calling like he was supposed to, they probably would have all come together and it would have worked out. Like, this has been something that's been there for a long time. Because once again, if I'm not mistaken, the Thomas stuff was season 1. So, I mean, obviously the writers are able to retroactively be like, yeah, we were, it's like not them claiming like we had it, but they were able to kind of retroactively be like, yeah, like canonically speaking in the confines of the show, the divine consciousness basically told him what to do from the beginning, and that this groundwork was set that far in advance. But it's just because Egan wasn't doing what he was supposed to. He's only doing it now because everything like finally trails back to him finding out about the Omega Sapphire, and he's like, wait, what? Here's an opportunity. So now he's finally doing his first calling like he was supposed to, because they had Thomas, and if he had gone to Kenroy, Leo, like he was supposed to, they probably would have been reunited. This would have all been found out. But they were just, Michaela and Sami wouldn't have found out because Egan wasn't doing his side of things. He finally is. So now they're all brought together in this moment. So it is very reciprocal, like how it all kind of works out in the end, and how this is how it was supposed to be back then. It's just happening years later because once again, it's all Egan's fault. So there's that situation. But now it's a situation of, cool, we have to find Egan now because he's going to be on the lam with this thing. Once again, what's his justification for it? Is he going to do it to try and save himself? Or is he going to sell it for a high price? Like, he knows how important it is for everything. He knows about the death day. So I don't know. Like I said, I feel like it could be a thing of, I'm not worried about everyone else. I'm just trying to save my own life. Or I could see Egan being selfish enough to be like, oh, I'm going to sell it and make a boatload of money while I can. But he's also self-interested enough to be like, yeah, that was the whole point last episode. Like, yeah, I'm only worried because Noelle might come after me, right? So I would assume the same thing would be applicable in this case. I just want to look after. We just don't know what Egan's full true motives is. The fact is, it could either be one of those two. I see him being even selfish enough to be like, I won't even bother trying to save my life for it because who gives a shit? I'm going to sell it for money. But hey, maybe it is more so like, no, my life matters. I want to live long enough to kind of continue scamming and weaseling my way through life, so there's that. Oh my God, it just clicked in my head. Okay, jumping around a little bit. During the episode, there's an unknown phone number that calls Cal, right? I was like, I wonder who that is. Immediately in my back of my brain, I'm like, well, who attacks Egan at the end? I was like, well, it's got to be like, and immediately I was like, oh, it's got to be Angelina, right? It's like, of course it has to be. But then I thought about it, because they make a point of showing that Eden dialed the number. Like, she didn't, I don't know if she recognized her mom's number or just kind of knew instinctually, but like, I think it is all meant to be part of it. But I'm like, she had to have called Angelina, and Angelina heard everything about Egan and the Sapphire, and she probably like knew exactly where he would be. So it has to be Angelina, straight up. Like, I figured as much already, but now I'm like, oh no, the show is telling you it has to be Angelina, the unknown phone number and stuff like that. Who else could it be? So I was like, yeah, because like, while they wouldn't have her number saved in their phones, so, cause she has called Cal before, and she's called Ben before. I don't remember she might have had Ben's phone, whoever it might have been. She probably like either saw the number or just kind of like randomly pressed it, but it was on purpose. So she has it now. That's where this might be playing into the Adrian thing concerning like where she left him last episode, left him at the mercy of her mother. But also once again, the blood on his hands, I could see that being the case in this regard, but we'll have to wait and see. Dude, that I was like, because that just clicked in my head about the unknown number thing, and I'm like, yeah, because like I said, I already was thinking it was probably going to be Angelina, which would make the most sense, but that kind of makes the show be like, no, we are telling you it's Angelina. I mean, if it ends up not being Angelina, I'll be surprised, but it seemed like it would be just because of all of that. So, and obviously, this is also a very rough episode for Olive because it's like, no, like, how do I keep losing people. It's like, right, she lost her brother and her dad. Luckily, her brother, her dad, and her aunt, they came back. And now she ended up losing her mom. She lost her brother and her mom. But now it's like, oh, my brother at least came back. My mom's gone. But now my brother's about to be going again. And it's just like, and she lost Eden too. So it's like, there's just so much loss that luckily she's been fortunate enough to have some of that come back, but not all of it because she lost her mom and there's no coming back from that. And Cal might be, she's like, something's, and TJ's like, no, don't worry about it. It's, I'm not going anywhere. She's like, how do you know? He's like, well, here. And they do the tarot card reading and she pulls the death card. And TJ's like, it's about spiritual transformation, but Olive doesn't believe that, She believes like, no, it's about Cal. And she goes down there and sits with him and Ben, and it's like, right, there's no hiding it anymore. So they tell her the truth. They tell the entire family what's going on. Now, what was also interesting, and this could turn into a complicated, I was like, oh, this could get nasty. And even Zeke was like, yo, I got to get out of this room. Is that when Cal got the morphine, he was hit with that wave because, it's like that. Ooh, like he got some of that secondhand high because of his power. And he was like, yo, I gotta, if you'll excuse me. So he's got to be weary of that from now on. So it's like, and the addict in him will probably think like, right, I don't have to actually shoot up or get high. I could just get around people who are high and just get that secondhand high from them psychically, So it's like, that's a cheat around actually getting high. But I think even though he's not feeling it, I think even though he's not ingesting it or whatever the case may be, I think it's still hitting him like that. Makes him go like, yeah, this could be dangerous. So I'm curious if you're going to tell Michaela about that and, how weary, I'm sure he's going to be weary of it, but the addict side of him might be tempted to be like, yeah, I'm not actually doing it. I'm not actually getting high. I'm not taking pills or anything. I'm not drinking, but I'm around people and I'm feeling it basically vicariously living through them type of things in a very literal sense in this regard. So there's that angle to it. And then finally there's the whole situation of, oh yeah, also, because I didn't talk about it last episode because I forgot to talk about it, is that the captain at the registry offered Jarrett the job there, a transfer there, but for, from being just like a patrol to working the registry. But for him, it's like, I already kind of went through enough time being undercover hating 828ers. He's like, I don't know if I could do that. Like Drea, she's got that in her, like that political animal in her is able to kind of like, she's able to kind of like, compartmentalize that. Jared just doesn't think he can go through that again. So he's having reservations about it because he's like, right, I don't want to go through that again, but I can do more and help more part of the registry. But as he's returning Marco, lo and behold, who does he run into? The cop that he ended up running into, the one that likes harassing Sam, that he ran at the crime scene of the Adrian's little compound, and now running into him here. But it's like, oh, like, didn't you hear, buddy? I'm taking that job at the registry. Didn't you hear? And it's like, yeah, like, so you're going to be seeing a lot of me, buddy, so there's that angle to it. So, but, on top of all of that too, is they have another calling. This one, in fact, ends up breaking the globe that Marco has. And Marco's like eyes closed and it seemed like he was moving it. And I guess because this calling was so powerful, it hit him in particular. But part of me was wondering like, oh, because I was like, oh, is he okay after this? Like, will his functions and everything return to normal because of like how massive and powerful of a calling this was? It kind of like brought his brain back to normal functions maybe. I don't know, but everyone's drawn into it. And this time, Alex is seen. Also, like, Thomas is there with Leo. And now they piece it together. It's like, right, this death date wasn't just about us 828ers. It's about everything. This was a, we got to save the world type of thing. It's like, this is the end all be all. This is about, being a new Noah's Ark. We need to save everyone. We're saving the entire world. Because that's why it's like that's why the people we care about, we've been misinterpreting this entire time. The death date isn't about us. Well, it is. It's about, but everyone, the entire world. And Egan's there and Michaela's like, give us the sapphire, but before he could hand it over, at first I was like, are you dead? But he got knocked over the head, so I'm like, I don't know if he's dead or not. He might be, he might not be. I feel like if he was bludgeoned to death, you'd think there'd be more blood on the ground, but he does look like he got hit in the head. So, Angelina might be like, hey, either like they struggled over it, he got knocked out that way, or she did just like straight up knocked him out. I guess there's always a possibility it's Adrian, but because that's also the thing. We didn't see Adrian or Angelina in that calling. You would think they would have gotten it too, but I don't know. Maybe because they've messed up so much, they're kind of on the outs of all this. Who knows? Because also I don't think TJ was there, and he wasn't getting that calling either. Only certain people have been, So that's the interesting element of all of this. Wait, did TJ didn't beat his death date, did he? He did he? I don't remember. Because we didn't really see him do I just don't remember where TJ's situation was before he ended up leaving. I don't remember now. Either way. Yeah, regardless, I'm assuming he's knocked out, but maybe he is dead. You'd almost be like, it'd be super poetic for him to be dead after everything that he's done. He's kind of screwed the pooch a lot. Next to Adrian and Angelina, he's kind of really done a lot of damage to this lifeboat situation. But we'll ultimately have to wait and see. The next episode is the part 1 finale, the mid-season finale, however you want to refer it. It's going to be interesting to see how part 1 wraps up and what this means for part 2, the final 10 episodes. We'll ultimately have to wait and see what goes down next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.